Hey, CJD here. Pumping out another Speedart video, however, this time it's a bit special. For this is a fan piece for a dead game and comic series, of which is pretty obscure, and although I tried looking for it, I was unable to find anything. Mitrasphere, a gacha PvE, co-op or single-player visual novel and JRPG set in a fantasy world where an ocean blankets the earth and another the sky, developed by JetSynthesis and published in the partnership of Bank of Innovation Incorporated. It would go on to be highlighted by Crunchyroll in around 2021, then die shortly after, stripped of its gameplay and turned into just a visual novel with a character customizer strapped to it. Oh, and on top of that, it was region locked to Japan. So, no luck in trying to download it for yourself. To give it a parallel, it was a lot like Unison League. If Unison League had 3 times the amount of character customization options and a larger pool of accessories to personalize with, at I guess the cost of having literally 0 ways other than the friend request system to join up with each other. There were no guilds, there was no PvP, and multiplayer interaction beyond co-op was pretty minuscule from what I remember. I've heard people say Mitrasphere's art style is subpar, but then turn around and say it's stunning. I will tell you from an artist's perspective that bad is subjective, but for reasons I'll get into later, it commands some respect in its method. So, getting on with the project, I'll be drawing how I envision an adult Matilda if we ever got to see her grow into a fully fledged queen. So I started out with a sketch, then I inked it, headed to Abyss Paint after taking a photo with as much floodlight as possible to remove as many shadows as I could, converted it into line art, fixed up any breaches manually, and you'll notice I missed some details like, for example, the tree growth on the character's legs, but I'll add those details later because obviously wasn't paying attention. Oh well, it's just how it is. I do a matte color of the character, separating the components into layers. I do some limited shading to differentiate the tones of the fur, and elsewhere since it's quite close to the skin tone when looked at from afar. Normally for shading I tend to cheat with their art style with an eraser and post-processing effects, but this time I decided to be patient and trust the process, as people say. You'll see why I said their art style commands respect in a moment. I start shading, and around this point I realized, oh hey, I missed some details. And I add those in and continue shading. And good God, their shading is bizarre. So first off, if you look closely, their coloring looks a lot like you mashed acrylic paint and watercoloring together. You see large masses of color or splotches, and you see these little blurry lines shut out. It's almost as if you pressed a paintbrush on your canvas, then swiped quickly, allowing for each individual strand of the brush to show its character. It's weird, and it demanded a lot of patience. If I were to do this again, I would probably use a tailor-made brush, but I don't know how any of this was drawn, so their method is completely unknown to me. I finished this up with my signature spam, a lot of guesswork because my brain wanted to short fuse, funnel charge my hand straight through my phone's screen, and I needed to just pretend that I knew what I was doing. Again, I couldn't find any content on this matter or anything relating to Mitrasphere in this department, so I guess it helps that this is like my 8th or so attempt trying to draw in this art style, and I at least somewhat know the bullshit it likes pulling. I mean, genuinely, imagine doing hash work for shading, then adding splotches of shadow on top of it. I mean, like, what was the point? Just add one shading method, LMAO. I mean, just to give you an idea on how much I've been tryharding on this art style, here's my last attempt without exact subject references. Pretty bad, or at least pretty mid. But let's show y'all the final piece with a subject reference. Behold, Queen Matilda.